they call me, and so I'm coming to take my turn. Hi, I'm Jody Reed, and I'm with the California Alliance for Retired Americans, and I'm here today to talk to you about the proposed cuts to IHSS. So I'm like starting, and I moved. Did you see that? I mean, did you kind of get the difference between being here with all your papers and then doing it while you're talking? It's very distracting. And the thing about an audience, whoever it is when they're speaking, they are watching you. And they are trying to follow what you are doing, both verbally and physically. So if you're moving papers around, then they're looking at the papers. If you're not really ready to start, then they're sitting there going, oh, poor thing, come on, get it together. I mean, they're there, and they're trying to be there cheering for you, but you need to help them follow you. And so you want to make sure that you start when you are ready. And sometimes that feels like it's 5 hours just to get you there and put all your papers down and look around the room once before you say good morning. Now this is another trick that all the theater people will teach you in Toastmasters. It's really good at least once to look around the whole room as if you're making eye contact with everyone. But you don't really even need to look at their eyes. You can be looking at their foreheads or the top of their heads, but scan the room before you say good morning or good afternoon or whatever it is, and your name. Because that makes everybody feel like you've brought them in, and now they're focused on you. Okay? And you don't, if you're nervous about making eye contact, which I often am, you know, I just did that, and did everybody feel like I kind of looked at you? Well, I'm not looking at your eyes. I'm looking at your top of your head. But it makes it seem like I am. And so that's really a good way to get people kind of hooked into you. Because you want them to, if you're going to get the guts to come and do this, you want them to listen to you. So you want to hook them in. The other thing is often you get introduced. Not so much at like a public hearing because you have to introduce yourself and state your name. But when you're at a center or a community event, someone will say, now we have Janet Canterbury from SECA here to speak to us. But people don't always say your name correctly. In fact, they usually don't. Even my name, which I always thought was so easy, it's R-E-I-D is my last name, Reed. I mean, how simple could it be? But people say Raed and Ried, and you know, they've said everything possible besides my name. And even when they say it sort of right, it's good to start by saying, good afternoon, my name is Jody Reed, and I'm here today. And here's why. One, you want them to hear how to say it correctly, in case they mispronounced it. Two, it's a really good way to check your voice and your volume, especially if you're using a microphone, before you get into the guts of what you want to say. And you don't really have to memorize that too much. You already know your name, I hope. And so it's an easy way to check your tone, the sound, your voice, the microphone, kind of how it's all projecting before you get into the meat of the matter, so that if in fact you do need to make an adjustment, you're not making it while you're in the meat of your conversation. So it's good for all those reasons to kind of state where you are, saying, and get yourself started with something that's completely sort of natural and automatic. If you are someone who uses cards or paper or likes to read your statement, how many of you have done this and used like tools like that, like to read? Some of you? I'm very bad at this, so I always write out my speech, always, and then I never use it. Or I use it as a tool, as an outline. But I tend to be a much more effective speaker when I'm kind of speaking off the top of my head. That's just my style. I don't recommend it for everybody. You have to figure out what makes you the most comfortable. But if you're going to use materials, like and actually read, which is completely fine, to read your whole speech, you need to practice how you're going to do that. Because if you're nervous, and this is why I don't do it, because I'm always nervous, it's like this. And so what are people looking at? This is what they're looking at, thinking, oh, the poor thing's so nervous, I wish she'd calm down. And they're not listening to you. They're just, they're seeing this thing, oh, it's going to fall, and she's going to lose her place, and the audience is really paying attention. Believe me, even the ones who are like nodding off, this is what they're going to see. Another real common mistake is that people talk like this so that they can read it because it needs to be here, and then you don't see them at all. Not only does that muffle the sound, but you've completely lost contact with whoever you're trying to speak with. And so practicing with written material is very important. If there's a podium, having the materials like laid out before you start speaking on the podium in front of you is really a good idea. If you are going to read it in some way, print it big enough so that you can read it from this far, so you don't have to hold on to it. Now with computers, there is so much that we can do to make this easier for us. The president of CARA, all of our folks are older, and so many of us suffer from declining vision. And so I type up sometimes like talking points, like key points that she should make, because she never follows a script that I've ever written her ever. But I write key points. And I type it like in 14-point font, which I thought is like kind of big enough. And then she goes on her computer and puts it in like 18 or 20. So it's really big, and there's white space in between it so that she can follow along. Everybody has to find the way that it's going to work for you. Some people use index cards, and they just put kind of key points on the index cards, and then they flip over the index cards. Practice with the tools that you want to use. None of them are better or worse than the other, as long as they work for you in a way that will help you get your point across comfortably and without fear. So there's no one way to do this. Some people will tell you, memorize your speech as much as possible and try not to use materials. I say, forget about that. That will make you more nervous if you try to memorize something and then you miss a line and then you get all confused. Don't do it if that's not your way. You have to do what's comfortable for you. Just make sure, however you choose, that it's something you have practiced with and that you use to your advantage. Talk slowly. Always slower than what you think you should. So I'm a very fast talker, I know that. And when I'm speaking like right now, I am trying really hard to slow it down. And in my head, it sounds like, remember when we used to have records? And it was on that like slow number, 36 or whatever it was. To me, that's what it sounds like I'm doing here. It's like, these people are going to be snoring in a minute. I have to be really conscious to slow it down and always go slower than what you think is slow enough. Because especially when we're speaking with our own constituents and fellow members, some of them have hearing challenges. Sometimes the rooms are really horrible acoustically, and it's hard to hear even for the folks who have the best hearing. In the legislature or the city council, some of those buildings are like kind of old and the sound it's just hard to hear, and there's mumbling in the background from the audience talking, or sometimes other legislators talking with each other instead of listening to you. So the slower, the louder, and the clearer you are, the more you will get your message across. And so try to be conscious and practice in advance with whatever you're going to say, whether it's memorized or written. Try saying it to yourself in a mirror or to somebody else if they're willing to help you. To see that you're speaking loudly enough, clear enough, you've practiced, and that you're checking the speed. And breathe. Breathe. Breathing is good. And it's really easy to forget to do it when you're nervous and you're trying to get a point across. Especially if you get stuck or you forget your place, stop. It's okay to stop and just say, excuse me for a minute and just take a breath, take a drink. If you start getting really fast and kind of ahead of yourself, and so you can start skipping things, you need to, the best way to kind of bring yourself back to reality and to the audience is to stop. It'll seem like hours to you. I know it'll feel like, oh God, I'm going to lose them. It's probably just a matter of seconds, but those seconds can get you back on track. The executive director of the Alliance for Retired Americans has a national office, and then we have state affiliates. And so I'm the director of the California affiliate, but we have a director from the national organization, and he often comes like once a year to our conventions like this. And every single time he has come, not only does he speak, he's super smart, and he's got lots of good information, but I really want to just take him aside and say, you need to take a speaking class. Because he speaks super fast, and it seems like he always has like a cold or something when he comes to speak to us, because he's always got like a frog in his throat. And this is what happens to him. He'll start speaking, he always has a PowerPoint, they love the PowerPoints. And so he's, that's the first thing you have to make sure works, which technology is like always way over. I'm a dinosaur when it comes to technology, so I never use PowerPoints because I know they're not going to work when I need them to work. But other people are much more comfortable with them, and one of these days I assume I will be too, but at the moment I'm not. He always uses them, and he's always talking really fast, and he always has like this, it's like a cold, or it sounds like he has a cold, and he's constantly and then, going on, and then, and the whole audience, every single year when he comes, here's what happens. First they all start clearing, just like you just did. They clear their throat. In support of this guy, like, go ahead, clear your throat, just do it one good one. Then you'll see somebody, all the women are starting to dig around in their purse looking for a throat lozenge or a cough drop for him. Somebody always walks up with a glass of water. The poor thing can't speak, losing his voice. I mean, the audience is feeling his pain. And I just want to tell him, listen, before you get up there, drink, clear your, if you're not sick, which I would think he's not sick and traveling, then clear your throat and kind of get ready for this, because otherwise, half of the things that he says gets lost because everybody's trying to help him get rid of that thing in his throat. And that's what happens when you're speaking. The audience, especially because you are all going to speak, I know, from the heart and with passion, which he also does, people are going to want to hear you. And so they're going to be sitting, listening to everything you have to say. And if you start, losing your way or losing your voice, they're going to feel your pain. The same is true if like something is weird about the situation. So I'm going to tell you another little quick story. Another time I was at some big convention of, I forget who it was, but it was like very official folks who were not my normal constituents. And I hate going to those things. It was like professional folks, and I had to like wear a suit and look, like I was going to tell them something about seniors that they needed to know and respond to in their practice. I can't even remember what it was, but I'll tell you the story and you'll know why I remembered it. So it was a luncheon thing. And so we're all sitting at tables like this, and there were like different presentations, and then I was like an after lunch speaker. So I get there, I'm wearing a very professional looking suit, I thought, black suit, white shirt, and it was my turn to speak. So, and they had ravioli for lunch. So you'll get the story in a second. All right, so okay, ravioli, that's good. And so I was trying to, be very careful and not eat too much and wipe my face, make sure I was all, nice and presentable before they call me up, and they call me up. And I walk up, and I'm standing there ready to start speaking, and I notice, and there's like hundreds of people in this room, that everybody is staring at my chest, which now you all will do. And I thought, all right, my button's undone.